Hey everybody, this is Jurius Doctor, and today we're going to take a look at the new player experience mass test that's happening on SiSi, on Singularity. That's the test server. So here I am in my pod with a nice fancy skin on it in the starting system for this activity, FD-TAC MLJ. And according to the instructions that they've given us here, the details are basically we've made some changes to the NPE, including integrating the majority of NPE within the agency and creating a basic combat and industry path for the agency tasks. These changes are the beginnings of allowing new players to experience choice early on and also introducing them to content discovery via the agency from day one. What exactly is being tested? Well, the NPE integration into the agency. So rather than forcing an on-rails sort of dive-in experience, you're going to have new combat and industry tasks for the new player experience. What feedback are they looking for? Well, bug reports and forum posts, obviously, about completion. And how to test this is to join Singularity server from your launcher window. Join the channels Singularity and Mass Testing in the chat channels in-game. And then from there, they want you to dock up at one of the stations in FD-TAC MLJ to get a rookie Corvette, open the agency window, and then select the combat or industry tutorial paths so that you can start going through the tutorial. So I've already docked up here, and I should have a Corvette in this station. And there it is. So I'm just going to rename this. And I'm going to make this my active ship. Now, by default, all new Corvettes have a civilian weapon, a civilian mining laser, and an afterburner or an MWD. To get started here, I'm going to just, give myself a fancy skin to kind of make it look a little nicer than what I just picked out straight away. So I can go for this lovely, glacial drift, or I can go purity of the throne, or I can go cold iron. I kind of like the look of the cold iron, so I'm going to stick with that. And just like that, with just the base starting ship, I'm going to get started by following their instructions. So first step is to open the agency window. That's this funny little icon down here. And now we have these career paths, combat career path and industry career path. And we can see that they've got a new icon here. So this is a little notification. It lists that there's a chain of 0 of 16 tasks completed for combat and 0-11 of tasks completed for the industry career path. In addition to these new player experience career paths, which also have their own new logo, we also have a series of regular items that you have access to through the agency window, including things like incursions, factional warfare, pirate strongholds, smash and grab, resource gathering, and resource wars. Now, if you wanted to specify, you can do that, but I'm just going to start here with the combat career path. And they have this interesting new layout. So kind of like getting started with other new player experiences in other games, you have some branches as to how you can proceed and where you can go on from as you advance through this chain. So learning to seek and destroy, range and fall off, controlling your tracking tactics, using your afterburner, ship fitting, and those kinds of things. So it's a short guide to really take you through some of the fundamentals. And this is all information that I cover in a lot of my videos, but it's nice that they're including some of that content into the game so that people who aren't, extremely active on YouTube or Twitch, or who aren't following along with guides on INN or other news sources, Tent and Hammer, so on, they're not getting access to that content. So if people aren't in the know that there's such a big, expansive community involved, here they have the opportunity to kind of explore that content directly in the game. I really like how this looks. So to begin with, I'm gonna pick out the first mission here, and I'm just gonna activate. And here what will happen is that Oriole will begin speaking at me. I have sound turned off in the game, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to turn that back on. And I'm going to follow Oriol's instructions. So the first thing to do is to get into space to begin. Okay, and the next instructions are warp to the training site by clicking warp to location.
Warp drive active.
Now, because this character is a Mar, his rookie ship or his Corvette is an Mar ship. I only have these skins because I've been playing the game for a while. These are basically vanity items that just let you, change the look and appearance of your ship. They don't change the stats at all. It doesn't affect gameplay. It's not going to improve your ability to kill things. It's literally just pretty paint on your ship. So, when you land at this site, you can see that there's some structure here, a little bit of space context, and you have some initial targets. Now, because I can see that in my different windows here, I have different things visible in my overview. One of the first things I want to do is I want to add these targets to my overview. And the first thing I'm going to do is engage these hostile targets and set them up for the fight so that I can take them on. And I'm going to start by engaging my weapon and orbiting at high speed so as to take less damage incoming from these targets. And here we can see that I'm already doing a decent amount of damage to these starting NPCs. I'm really kind of liking the look of this experience so far, and I can change my orbit path so that I engage a different target. I can see that these guys are already dropping loot. That's a good sign to see that the developers are taking in, sort of the risk reward here for new players to try to entice them to continue by giving them stuff that they can scoop from the wrecks, even if it's just scrap metal to get started, teaching them about reprocessing. I'm really kind of liking how this looks so far. I'm going to increase my speed tank here just by turning my afterburner back on, try to reduce the incoming damage that I'm taking, and take on this last target here. Now, if I really want to be efficient, one of the things I can do is I can orbit with the Rex instead of orbiting the target, and this forces him to maintain a certain distance from me so that he can apply damage. And this way I don't drift too far away when he dies. So I'll turn my afterburner off now, and I'm going to go in and scoop the cargo. And just like I suspected, I'm getting a lot of scrap metal. But that's okay, because scrap metal can be refined for titanium. Now, if I had a salvaging laser, one of the things that I could do is I could select these wrecks and salvage them for salvage, if that is allowed or set up in the NPE by the developers. But, not a bad sort of situation here. I like the wrecks that they've put in here for the sleeper situation here. Looks like a sleeper hive or a sleeper structure. The setting's not bad. It's pretty nice. I kind of like what they've done here. So the next steps is saying reopen the agency window. Go back to that career path and proceed to one of the next activities. So it's giving us a couple more seek and destroy options, and then we can get into range and fall off. So I'm just going to take on these other missions.
Warp drive active.
So one of the reasons you want to have this tactical overlay turned on is to see what the effective maximum range of your guns is, and to make sure that your targets are inside the optimal range when you engage them. I don't want this guy getting outside of my optimal, so I want to make sure that he stays within that first red ring. I can see that this guy is not yet in my optimal, so I'm going to wait until he's within my guns, and then I'm going to shoot him. Now what I'm doing here is called getting within his range, or getting under his guns. And typically when you're dealing on a ship this small, you want to have your default orbit distance set to 500 meters. And for this last guy, I definitely want to get close enough to deal damage to him, but I don't want to necessarily be running directly at his guns. So what I'm going to do for this guy, because he's a little bit bigger and he's using missiles, is I'm going to coast past him and then spiral in to deal damage to him. And here I'm predominantly relying upon the passive regen rate of my shields and my high speed to avoid most of the damage from the missile. I also have the benefit of having a very small size as a corvette. And there we go, task completed. I've successfully eliminated all the enemies in this area. Now I can select a new task. And each time I complete one of these tasks, you can see I'm getting a small deposit of IS. Now, before I warp to that location, one of the things I'm going to do is I can see that I've got a few different citadel structures here. One of the things I can do is add citadels to overview. And this gives me the ability to see whether or not I have docking access at any of these structures. And one of the things I'm going to want to do is warp to 0 on one of these so that I get tether, and then the armor damage that I've sustained can be repaired by the repair systems of the citadel. This is a handy way to get free reps when you're out and exploring for the first time. And here we have the mighty Keepstar, the largest structure made by humans in EVE Online. And there we have it, just a few seconds of being tethered up against this big structure, and my damage has been repaired.
Warp drive active.
I do like the fact that the difficulty for these individual rats and these early level missions seem appropriately sized and appropriately strengthened to the class of vessel that new players will be flying, which is corvettes. So good job there. I think so far the experience has been quite balanced. Now it's just a matter of experiencing, knocking out these other guys here. And look at that, they've been kind enough to drop me right on top of this guy. So there we go. I managed to survive the site without much damage. Halfway through armor, still got all my hull, which isn't a ton, but it's about the same amount as my armor. Shields will passively regen, so I'm doing okay there. I think that this is something where if Aura had provided some recommendations, such as getting a armor repair like they do with the old new player experience, that would be advisable. I think it's a good piece of feedback. I'll probably send them through the forums. But I think that running with a civilian armor repair would be a good option for these kinds of early combat engagements. Also, upgrading from a civilian Gatling weapon to a standard laser, like Gatling laser, would do a big difference in terms of dealing damage to these rats. But in terms of enjoyment and sort of freedom to kind of enjoy this experience and this early ratting PvE experience, this is quite nice. It's quite enjoyable. I like what they've done here. Obviously, it's a beautiful game and it's engaging to play. It's just one of those things where I question how much are they giving players and how soon are they giving it to them. So just a short minute to sidle up to one of these keep stars here and get some free reps. Okay, now I'm going to dock up to get the redeemable items they've given me. You can see I've received bounty prizes for killing all those rats. It's a small drop in the bucket against the amount of ISK I have on this character, but could be worse. For a new player, 200,000 ISK is going to look like a fair amount of ISK, and I think that it's good that they're getting their feet wet slowly.
Docking permission requested. Docking request accepted.
I already have these skills, so I'm not going to bother injecting them. But how you would typically add these to your training queue is you would right-click on them and then say inject skill. But because I have these trained all the way up to 5 already, that's not something I'm going to do, so I'm just going to trash these. So now what I want to do is add a couple of small weapons that I can use to be a little bit more successful. And I'm going to get a couple of ammo crystals for those guns. Now to fit up the ship with a little bit more damage and some survivability. There we go. So now that I've upgraded my gun, and added ammunition, I can group my weapons together, and I can warp to the combat site.
Warp drive active.
So here there's 2 attack towers that have been deployed to the training site. The ship's computer has highlighted the closest target in my overview. I can look at the distance column to see how far it is from my ship. So here it's 11 kilometers. The maximum range on my guns is 6,240 meters. So really I want to be inside of my range for this. So here I can see my optimal range is within 5 kilometers. So I'm going to set my orbit for 4,500 meters, which will put me inside of my optimal. And then once I can see that that target is inside that inner red ring, I'm going to start firing. And I'll do the same thing here again. By upgrading my weapons, I've gone from 3 damage per second to 23 damage per second. So I'm able to do quite a significantly higher amount of damage to these gun placements. And that's it for that range and fall off exercise.
Warp drive active.
Now let's see how quickly I can kill the enemies in this next area. And that's how she's done. Basically, you just continue through these career paths.
Warp drive active.
Not a bad test so far, I have to say. I'm kind of enjoying this content. It's low level, easy to access, The instructions are pretty clear. I have to say, CCP, 2 thumbs up. Good job.